The silent crossing. Some people enter your life loudly. Others arrive so quietly that you don't realize they've changed you until they're gone. Ethan Hale lived his life between departures. Every morning at 5:30 a.m., before the city fully woke up, Ethan stood on Platform 9 of the Gray Line transit station. The air was always cold at that hour, carrying the smell of metal, coffee, and unfinished dreams. Trains arrived. Trains left. People rushed past him with suitcases, hopes, regrets, and excuses. Ethan was the one constant in a world built on movement. He wasn't unhappy, but he wasn't fulfilled either. He had chosen the night-to-morning shift because it was quieter. Fewer conversations, fewer explanations, less pretending. The booth glass separated him from the world, and over time he learned to like that distance. Until Luna Morgan crossed his path. She appeared one ordinary Tuesday. Ethan noticed her not because she was loud or dramatic, but because she moved differently. She didn't rush. She didn't scroll endlessly on her phone like everyone else. She walked as if she was thinking deeply about something she couldn't put into words. She wore a long gray coat and carried a worn brown bag slung across her shoulder. In her hands was a notebook, blue, soft-edged, clearly used often. She paused briefly at the schedule board, sighed, then walked past Ethan's booth. Their eyes met. Just for a second. She smiled. Not the polite kind people give strangers, but a small, unsure smile, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to. Ethan felt something unfamiliar. Not excitement, not attraction, recognition. He watched her disappear onto the train. He told himself it was nothing. The next day she came again. Same time, same coat, same notebook. This time she hesitated near the booth. Ethan straightened unconsciously. She looked like she wanted to say something, but didn't. The train arrived. The doors opened. She stepped inside, and again she was gone. By the end of the week, Ethan realized something strange. He was waiting for her. He didn't know her name. He didn't know her story. But somehow her presence had woven itself into his routine. Mondays she looked tired, eyes distant. Tuesdays she hummed softly, almost inaudible. Wednesdays she wrote in her notebook while standing, as if afraid to stop moving. And every day, without fail, she passed his booth. They never spoke. Yet something was happening. Luna Morgan lived her life quietly too. She worked part-time at a public library and spent the rest of her days writing things she never showed anyone. Poems, letters, thoughts she didn't yet understand. The train station was her in-between place. She liked it because no one asked questions there. No one asked why she was alone. No one asked why she looked sad sometimes. No one asked what she was running from. And then there was Ethan, the man in the booth. At first she noticed his hands, steady, careful, as if he held fragile things even when he wasn't. Then she noticed his eyes. They weren't empty like most people's. They were observant, thoughtful, lonely in a familiar way. She wondered what he was thinking every morning. She wondered if he noticed her. She told herself not to care. Weeks passed. Seasons shifted. Winter faded into early spring. One morning, something changed. Luna stopped. She removed her headphones and stepped closer to the booth. Ethan's heart raced, but his face stayed calm. "Does it ever get boring?" she asked. Her voice was soft, honest. Ethan blinked, surprised. "Boring?" he repeated. She nodded. Watching people leave all the time, he thought for a moment. "No," he said slowly. "I think everyone's going somewhere important, even if they don't know where yet." Luna smiled. A real smile this time. "I like that," she said. The train arrived too soon. She stepped back, hesitated, then added, "Have a good morning." "You too," Ethan replied. She boarded the train. But something was different now. The silence between them had been broken. From that day on, they talked. Not long conversations. Not dramatic confessions, small ones. How's your morning? Cold today. Busy night? They never exchanged numbers. Never asked personal questions. But familiarity grew. Luna learned Ethan drank black coffee, no sugar. Ethan learned Luna hated loud places and loved quiet corners. They talked about books, about music, about nothing, and somehow about everything. Then one morning, Luna didn't come. 5:30 passed, 5:40, 5:50. Ethan told himself not to panic. But the next day, she was gone again, and the next. By the end of the week, the platform felt emptier than it ever had. Ethan found himself staring at the spot where she usually stood. He felt foolish. She's just a stranger, he told himself. But deep down, he knew better. She had become part of his life without ever asking permission. 2 weeks later, a man approached the booth. "Excuse me," he said. "You're Ethan, right?" "Yes." The man handed him a small envelope. "She asked me to give you this." Ethan's hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was a single page torn from a blue notebook. It read, "Some people meet at the wrong time. Some meet at the right place. And some meet in between. Thank you for seeing me without asking who I was." Ethan sat back slowly. For the first time in years, he felt regret. Not because he lost her, but because he never tried to keep her. And somewhere else in the city, Luna Morgan boarded a different train, carrying her notebook, unaware that 2 lives had already been changed, and that their story was far from over. When distance learns your name, Luna Morgan did not leave the station because she wanted to. She left because staying had become dangerous to her heart. The morning she stopped coming, she stood across the street from the Gray Line station, watching the entrance as people poured in. She could almost picture Ethan behind the glass, calm and steady, waiting without knowing he was waiting for her. Her fingers tightened around the strap of her bag. "If I go back," she whispered to herself, "I'll stay." And staying meant hope. Hope meant attachment. And attachment meant pain she wasn't sure she could survive again. So she turned away. Luna's new routine was quieter, lonelier. She transferred libraries, farther from the station, farther from temptation. Her days were filled with shelving books, helping strangers find words they didn't yet know they needed, and returning home to an apartment that echoed too loudly when she spoke. At night, she wrote. She wrote about platforms and glass booths, about a man who never asked too much, about how safety can feel like love when you've known chaos. She never wrote Ethan's name. She was afraid that once she did, she wouldn't be able to stop. Ethan, on the other hand, unraveled slowly. He didn't tell anyone, because there was no one to tell. The station went back to being what it had always been, loud, rushed, indifferent. But now every train felt personal. Every departure felt like it was taking something from him. He replayed their conversations over and over. "Does it ever get boring? I like that. Have a good morning." Such small words. Such permanent damage. He started arriving earlier, leaving later, hoping, irrationally, that she might appear again, notebook in hand, smiling like she hadn't already changed his life. She never did. 3 months passed. Then one night, everything shifted. It was raining. Hard, relentless rain that soaked through coats and patients alike. Ethan was preparing to close his booth when he noticed someone standing just outside the station entrance. A woman. Gray coat, brown bag, blue notebook pressed tightly against her chest. His breath caught. He stepped out before he could think. "Luna?" She turned slowly. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Rain fell between them like time itself. "I didn't think you'd remember my name," she said finally. "I didn't think you'd disappear," Ethan replied. Silence stretched. "I had to," she said quietly. "Why?" She looked past him, at the tracks. "Because some connections feel safe. until you realize they're changing you. And that's bad? He asked. She met his eyes. It's terrifying. They stood under the station awning, rain drumming like a countdown. Luna told him part of the truth. She told him about moving libraries, about needing distance, about being afraid of becoming dependent on moments instead of building a life. She didn't tell him everything. She didn't tell him about the doctor visits, the fatigue, the diagnosis she was still trying to accept. Ethan listened, not interrupting, not fixing, just hearing her. "I missed you," he said simply. The words hit her harder than she expected. "I missed you too," she admitted. "That's the problem." The train arrived. She stepped back. "Will I see you again?" he asked. She hesitated. "I don't know," she said, "but I hope so." And just like before, she was gone. This time, Ethan didn't wait. The next morning, he requested a schedule change. He began visiting libraries on his days off, pretending he was looking for books, secretly hoping to see her. Weeks passed with no sign. Then, one afternoon, he found her. She was sitting near the window, sunlight spilling over her notebook, writing with the same intensity he remembered. He didn't speak at first. He sat across from her. She looked up and smiled. "You're persistent," she said. "I learned from you," he replied. They talked for hours. About their childhoods, about fear, about the things they avoided saying. Ethan told her about growing up with absence, parents who were there physically but never emotionally. Luna told him about learning early that love could leave without warning. They didn't touch. They didn't promise. But something deeper formed. As weeks passed, they built a fragile rhythm. Coffee after her shift, long walks without destination, shared silence that didn't need explanation. Ethan noticed changes in Luna. She tired easily. She sometimes paused mid-sentence, gathering strength. Her smile flickered more often. "Are you okay?" he asked one evening. She nodded too quickly. "Just tired." He didn't push, but concern rooted itself in his chest. One night, Luna didn't show up. No message, no call. Ethan waited. Hours passed. Then his phone rang. "Is this Ethan Hale?" a voice asked. "Yes. This is St. Mary's Hospital." The world narrowed to a single point. At the hospital, everything smelled like antiseptic and fear. Luna lay pale against white sheets, her notebook on the bedside table. When she opened her eyes and saw him, tears fell silently. "I didn't want you to find out like this," she whispered. "Find out what?" he asked, his voice breaking. She took a breath. "I'm sick," she told him then. About the diagnosis, about the uncertainty, about why she pulled away before things became real. "I didn't want to be someone you stayed with out of obligation," she said. "Or pity." Ethan shook his head. "You don't get to decide that alone." Tears streamed freely now. "I'm scared," she admitted. "So am I," he said. "But I'm still here." From that moment, everything changed. Love was no longer abstract. It was urgent. Ethan learned hospital schedules, medication names, how to read Luna's silence. Luna learned how to let someone stay. Some days were hopeful, others were devastating, but neither ran. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Luna handed Ethan her notebook. "If something happens to me," she said softly, "I want you to have this." He swallowed hard. "Nothing is happening to you." She smiled sadly. "Promise me." "I promise," he said. "But I'm not letting you go." She leaned into him, and for the first time they held each other, not as almost, not as strangers, but as two people choosing love in the face of time. Time did not heal Luna Morgan. It taught her how to endure. Days blurred into a rhythm of hospital visits, medication schedules, and moments stolen between exhaustion and pain. Some mornings she woke up feeling almost normal, strong enough to laugh, strong enough to believe she might outrun fate. Other mornings, even lifting her hand felt like asking too much of her body. Through it all, Ethan stayed. Not loudly, not heroically, just faithfully. He learned when to talk and when silence was the real medicine. He learned that love sometimes meant sitting on the edge of a bed at 3 a.m., watching someone breathe, praying without words. Yet even devotion has limits, and Luna could feel hers approaching. One afternoon, as autumn began its quiet takeover of the city, Luna asked Ethan to take her somewhere different. Anywhere but the hospital, she said. They ended up by the river. The water moved steadily, indifferent to human suffering. Leaves drifted past, golden and fragile, like reminders that everything beautiful is temporary. They sat on a bench. "I've been thinking," Luna said. Ethan stiffened. He had learned to fear those words. "I don't want my life to shrink into rooms and machines," she continued. "I want to feel like myself again. Even if just for a while you are yourself," he said gently. She shook her head. "I'm becoming someone you have to take care of. That's not how this was supposed to be." "This was never supposed to be anything," Ethan replied. "And yet here we are." She looked at him, eyes shimmering. "That's exactly why I'm scared." 2 weeks later, the doctor confirmed what Luna already felt. Once a week, and then silence. Ethan did not chase her, not because he didn't want to, but because love sometimes means respecting a door someone closes, even when it breaks you. He poured himself into work, took extra shifts, avoided places that reminded him of her. But memories are patient. They waited. Months passed. Winter arrived harsh and unforgiving. One evening, Ethan found Luna's notebook again, the one she had given him. He had avoided opening it as if the words inside might make everything final. That night, he read. Page after page of longing, fear, hope she never voiced. And then near the end, "If you're reading this and I'm not there, know that loving you was never a mistake. It was the bravest thing I ever did." Ethan closed the notebook and cried for the first time in years. Meanwhile, by the sea, Luna watched waves crash endlessly against the shore. Her body weakened, but her spirit sharpened. She wrote less now. She thought more. About trains, about booths made of glass, about a man who loved quietly and completely. One morning she woke up with a certainty that startled her. She had been running, not from death, but from love, and she was tired of running. She returned in early spring. No announcement, no warning. Ethan was on duty when he saw her standing at the edge of the platform. Thinner, paler, but unmistakably her. He stepped out slowly, afraid she might vanish again. "You came back," he said. "I never stopped wanting to," she replied. They stood inches apart. "I don't have much time," she said, "but I don't want the rest of it to be empty." Ethan's voice trembled. "Are you asking me to stay?" "I'm asking you to live with me," she said. "However long that means." He took her hands. "I already am." They didn't rush anything. That was the first rule. No dramatic declarations. No pretending time wasn't real. No promises they couldn't keep. Instead, they chose presence. Luna moved into Ethan's small apartment near the station, not because it was romantic, but because it was practical. The place smelled faintly of coffee and old books, and sunlight reached the kitchen in the mornings. It felt lived in, honest. "This will do," Luna said softly the first night, setting her bag down. Ethan watched her like she might shatter at any moment. "If you want somewhere else..." She shook her head. "I want here." And just like that, here became sacred. They built a life measured in moments. Mornings were slow. Ethan made breakfast. Luna sat at the table, wrapped in a sweater too big for her, reading or writing when her hands allowed. Some days she felt strong enough to walk to the station with him. Other days she waved from the window. "Be safe," she'd call. He always looked back. Always. Evenings were quieter. They cooked together when she had energy. Simple meals, nothing fancy. On difficult nights, they ate takeout and watched the city lights blink on from the window. Sometimes they talked about the future. Sometimes they didn't. And both were okay. Luna's health rose and fell like the tide. There were good weeks, laughing weeks, where she almost forgot the weight inside her body. Weeks where she teased Ethan, danced barefoot in the living room, and joked about how terrible his taste in music was. Then there were the bad days. Days when pain stole her voice. Days when she slept for hours. Days when Ethan sat beside her, holding her hand, wishing love alone were enough to heal. Through it all, Luna never lost her clarity. One night, as rain traced thin lines down the window, she spoke the words Ethan feared most. "If it gets worse," she said quietly, "I don't want to be kept alive by machines." Ethan closed his eyes. "I want dignity," she continued, "and truth, and you, not doctors, at the center of it." His throat tightened. "Don't make me promise that." She reached for his face. "I'm not asking you to give up. I'm asking you to love me honestly." After a long silence, he nodded. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay." Spring deepened. Flowers bloomed recklessly, as if unaware of grief. Luna loved that. She insisted on walks whenever possible, slow ones, measured ones, her hand tucked into Ethan's arm. One afternoon they stopped by the river again, the same bench. "Different people. You know," Luna said, watching the water. "This is where I first thought I might fall in love with you." Ethan smiled sadly. "I already had." She laughed softly. "Of course you did." Then her expression grew serious. "There's something I want to do," she said. "What?" "I want to leave something behind." They worked on it together. Luna's notebook became a book. Not a memoir, not exactly. A story about connection. About quiet love. About people who meet in passing places and change each other forever. Ethan typed when Luna was too tired to write. He never altered her words, only helped them exist. They sent the manuscript to a small publisher. Neither of them expected anything. But hope, once invited, tends to linger. Summer arrived gently. Then one morning Luna didn't wake easily. Her breathing was shallow, her skin warm in a way that felt wrong. At the hospital, machines hummed with terrible calm. The doctor was kind, but honest. "It's progressing faster now." Ethan nodded, numb. Luna squeezed his hand weakly. "No fear," she whispered. "Remember?" "I remember," he said. "I just don't want to." She smiled faintly. Love isn't about wanting. It's about choosing. The publisher called 2 days later. They wanted the book. Ethan laughed and cried at the same time. He held the phone to Luna's ear, and when she heard the news, tears slid silently down her cheeks. "I did something," she breathed. "You did everything," Ethan replied. Luna came home, not to recover, but to rest. Hospice care arrived quietly, respectfully. Friends visited. Silence returned when needed. One night, as moonlight filled the room, Luna asked Ethan to lie beside her. "Will you stay awake?" she asked. "As long as you need." She took his hand, pressed it to her chest. "Promise me something," she said. "Anything. Live fully after me." His breath hitched. "That's not fair." She smiled. "Neither is dying young. We don't get fair. We get meaning." Her breathing slowed. Words faded, but her grip never loosened. Until it did. Ethan stayed. Long after the room went quiet. Long after the world shifted, he stayed. Ethan didn't move for a long time. The room felt suspended, like the world was holding its breath out of respect. Machines had been turned off, curtains drawn halfway. The faint sound of traffic drifted in from somewhere far away, life continuing with an almost cruel normalcy. Luna was still. Not empty, just finished. Ethan pressed his forehead to her hand and let the grief arrive fully, without resistance. It came in waves, not loud or dramatic, but deep and suffocating. The kind of sorrow that doesn't beg for attention. The kind that reshapes you. "I'm here," he whispered, "just like I said." The days after were a blur. Paperwork. Condolences. People speaking gently, as if softness could prevent him from breaking. The apartment felt wrong without her presence. Her sweater still hung on the chair. Her notebook rested on the table, closed now, complete. Ethan slept in short stretches, ate when reminded, existed. What hurt most wasn't the loss, it was the sudden absence of purpose. He had loved her by staying. Now staying meant something else. The book was published 3 months later. The space between heartbeats. It didn't explode into fame. It didn't need to, but letters began arriving. Readers wrote about platforms they'd passed through, people they almost loved, moments they never forgot. Luna's words found their way into strangers' lives and stayed. Ethan read every letter. Sometimes he cried, sometimes he smiled. Sometimes he whispered, "You see that? You're still here." He kept his promise, slowly, painfully. He lived. He moved to a smaller place near the river. Volunteered at the library on weekends. Walked the same paths Luna once loved. On quiet mornings, he sat on the bench by the water and watched the world move forward, unchanged, and yet entirely different. Once, a woman sat beside him and asked if the bench was taken. He shook his head. No, they talked briefly, casually. When she left, he felt no guilt, just gratitude. Years later, Ethan returned to Gray Line Station, not as a worker, but as a passerby. The booth was still there. The glass still reflected fragments of lives in motion. He stood where Luna once stood, and smiled, because love hadn't ended, it had transformed. On his bookshelf, the notebook stayed. On its last page, Luna had written one final line, something Ethan had never noticed until much later. Some love stories don't end. They just stop needing words. Ethan closed the book, and for the first time in a long while, the ache in his chest felt gentle. Like a memory saying hello instead of goodbye. The end.